All right, guys, we have a little more airline chaos that we wanted to bring you. This audio just, I mean,
Buttigieg.
it just really fascinating to listen to because you had a near miss at JFK Airport where air traffic control had to intervene, and we got a hold of the audio, and actually someone put together a little animation so you could see where the aircraft, where the planes were as they're getting ready to taxi and take off. So very close to a collision here, and they had to intervene. Let's take a listen at how this all went down.
Delta 1943.
American 106 Heavy, American 106 Heavy, hold position. American 106 Heavy, hold position.
Delta 1943, cancel takeoff clearance. Delta 1943, cancel takeoff clearance. Rejecting. Delta 1943, same intentions. Yeah, we're going to have to go somewhere around a couple of Kirkleys and probably make some focal.
So you can hear some cursing there, an F-bomb, an S-bomb, and then they're
real close to a collision there, right on the runway.
And listen, I'm not an aviation expert. However, I've learned a lot this year. But people who, you know, were pilots are really familiar with the industry. We're looking at this and saying this is probably pilot error in terms of where this plane was going and where it was supposed to go. But it does raise a lot of questions. How often is this happening, and how easy is it for those errors to occur? What can we do to sort of mitigate these potential collisions? At the same time, we have some new reporting from our friends over at American Prospect about who exactly is to blame for that ground stoppage caused by a failed computer system. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. They do such a good job. The question raised here, what was behind last week's FAA breakdown? Pete Buttigieg's personal choices were certainly a factor. Basically, they go into who is running the FAA. And again, as a reminder, this whole situation unfolded where they had to have the ground stop because you had a key computer system that was down. So, you know, a lot of people in the mainstream press said, well, this isn't really Pete's fault. What does he have to do with it? But lo and behold, his management of the FAA in terms of which personnel he put in place could have been a key factor here. The FAA was left for a while with a vacancy at the top for the better part of a year. By statute, the deputy administrator is supposed to carry out the duties of the administration when the office is empty, but that's not how the Department of Transportation under Pete actually handled that vacancy. Instead, they passed over the deputy administrator, Bradley Mims, and instead appointed a dude named Billy Nolan, who was the associate administrator for aviation safety. So if you're following along, they had this vacancy. Rather than following protocol of who the position was supposed to be filled by, they jumped to this other dude. Well, why did they do that? According to the piece, quote, there's no real explanation for why Nolan was picked over Mims. Both have decades of experience. The most noticeable difference between them is that Nolan is a former airline executive who also worked at Airlines for America, a powerful trade group. The other one, who should have been in line for the gig, worked in the public sector in advisory roles and largely worked in transportation consulting. So he went to the guy who used to lobby for the airlines to run the FAA. And as Stoller pointed out, there's long been a really cozy relationship between the FAA and the airline industry. They have not served effectively as regulators, and that's part of why potentially, you know, there wasn't money in order to rebuild this key system and make sure that we didn't have the ground stop that we watched unfold.
Yeah, I mean, what I take away from the prospect piece is Buttigieg just doesn't care that much about his job. He just hires cronies, and when you hire cronies, bad things happen. They specifically point to the fact that FAA has been very reluctant, and Buttigieg specifically, to take on many of the airlines. And I think we started with the clip to show you, like, this is not a joke. You know, people can die. One wrong thing, and a lot of people who are totally innocent can lose their lives, hundreds of millions of dollars of damage, and clearly this is one of the most critical systems that we use in the United States. It's highly regulated for a reason. Now look, it is safe. There are, of course, always going to be misses and human error and all of that, but what they highlight here specifically is that Buttigieg's lack of, or basically reluctance, to put a strong person into the FAA was a personal choice that he made that has led to much of the airline chaos that we see in our system. You know, I just had somebody contact me yesterday about how Southwest Airlines was only going to reimburse them like $200 of the $700 that they had spent. Here's what they said. Southwest canceled 3 consecutive flights. I had to drive from Chicago to Dallas in a rental after Christmas. Rental cost was over $700. They are only refunding me $201 despite providing receipts. I'm absolutely furious. They destroyed his vacation. Now they're only reimbursing him, 2/7 or whatever of the cost.
Wow.
You get $500 out of pocket. How many people are going to keep fighting with the airline, after something like that? Most people are going to get pissed and then they're going to eat it. And that's not right.
Yeah.
Most people in this country, by the way, don't even have $500 in savings. So how many people out there did this happen to?
And the person who is supposed to have their back is Pete Buttigieg, and he has done next to nothing. They have a great line in here. They say, listen, this system was suffering from neglect, which resulted last week in that mass grounding. Buttigieg not directly culpable for that specific failure, but he is responsible for the personnel decisions about who was overseeing the situation. He's also responsible for setting the tone of the interactions between the Department of Transportation and an aviation industry that seemingly distributes dividends in a more timely manner than it transports Americans. He doesn't care about the job. He's bad at the job. He has done nothing to hold these airlines to account when they have failed over and over and over again and screwed over their passengers over and over and over again. Has to be the worst cabinet secretary or among the worst cabinet secretaries in the entire Biden administration. That's what happens when you use just like nepotism and cronyism to make these key personnel choices.
Yeah, exactly. I just think it's totally ridiculous. And we're not saying he's solely responsible, but when you oversee an agency and you oversee and have you have the biggest ground stop since 9/11 in modern American history, 2 weeks after the biggest airline meltdown in modern memory, and a year after the worst cancellation year in modern history on record. Something's eventually got to be your fault for not doing anything about it. And do you see the aggression and the necessity and the urgency that we should need from the man who is solely responsible for running it? I know the answer to that. It's
Indeed.
not.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.